What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the pre-lock show for Sunday Night Football here on RotoGrinders. We've got the Chargers and the 49ers duking it out tonight in San Francisco in a game that, I before we came live, I said we kind of got hosed on the primetime games this week. We had Falcons-Panthers, not a very good game on Thursday night. Tonight, Chargers 49ers, 7.5 point spread and a low total. But really, the Chargers are 5-3, the 49ers are 4-4. Pretty key game in the playoff race, and you can't really fault the scheduling folks for how banged up the Chargers are. So it is what it is. We've got a 7.5 point spread in favor of San Francisco in this one. And we'll break it down here over the next half an hour or so, getting you ready for kickoff at 8:20 Eastern between the Chargers and the 49ers. We've had some absolute barn burner football games this afternoon. The Bills and the Vikings, probably one of the best games of the year so far. Vikings pulled that out in overtime. Josh Allen with some critical mistakes. Not sure if he's just because he's banged up or if he's just suddenly not good anymore or what the case is. But
he should not have been playing today for what it's worth. I don't care what they say.
Yeah, and it was kind of a surprise for them, throwing him out there. I know it was an important game, but an L for the Bills in overtime. Some great catches by Justin Jefferson. The Packers and the Cowboys, I believe, are still going in overtime now as of the time we're coming on the air here for this one. So there's been some good games tonight, and we'll see what we can make of this one. I am Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84. I've got Chief Will Priester alongside me. Will, what's going on today?
Nothing much, man. I'm with you. All these games. Speaking of that Bills game that you just mentioned previously, I think we all, if you're watching the game, you kind of saw Allen throw an interception and then try to punch the ball out of Patrick Peterson's arm, and he's down. And then they went to commercial break, and he comes back. It's like I actually think Case Keenum could have won this game for them today, to be honest with you. They probably would have had a much different game plan. The game, I don't think, may have been as exciting, but I think Case would have got the job done today. And so, you roll him out there, you lose the game anyway on mistakes. And, that last play that actually, kind of basically sent this thing to overtime. Of course, the Bills had to drive down in 41 seconds, so 36 seconds after the kickoff. But, he just doesn't get the ball from a just regular old exchange. And it's like, well, you probably should have sat out today, man. And so they lose the game. Miami wins again. They better be glad the Jets aren't playing this week, or they may have been, falling a lot further behind this division. So I just think he should have sat today. But, hey, I'm not a doctor. I'm also not the coaching staff. And I'm also not Josh Allen. But that's what's kind of been going on today. Just a lot of football, a lot of fun things happened. I don't know if everybody saw, but the Lions beat the Bears, but Justin Fields ripped off another masterful touchdown this week. So I'm sure that's going to be on everybody's highlight reel. And so it was kind of an exciting week for football, even though on paper it looked like they should have been really bad.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was going to be the most exciting day going into it, but we had some really good games. So you never know. We might get one tonight as well that people aren't expecting. So if you're just catching up on news, Keenan Allen is out. Mike Williams is out. Will let you know that the kicker for the Chargers, Dustin Hopkins, is out. So Cameron Dicker, the kicker, will be
the kicker.
He'll be their field goal guy again tonight.
Didn't Dicker kick at Texas? I think that's where he kicked at, right?
Yeah, he was at Texas, so I'm sure the collegiate students down at Texas didn't have any reason why Dicker the kicker became kind of the way he's known, but that's okay. He'll be kicking again tonight for the Chargers, and those injury situations are kind of the reason why we've got a 7.5 point spread in this game. And of course, San Francisco's defense is pretty good as well. So how do you see this game playing out? You think the Chargers can hang in this one? What do you think as far as how competitive this game is going to be tonight?
Well, this definitely feels like a spot where San Francisco should essentially take care of business, right? You go out, you get Christian McCaffrey. You've got Brandon Ayuk. You've got George Kittle. You've got Deebo Samuel back in the fold tonight. And the defense is getting a little bit more healthy. So I think this is a spot where the 49ers try to make a statement. The Chargers probably fall behind, and we get a lot of garbage time fantasy points from the Chargers, which very well may start in the second or third quarter, depending on if the San Francisco 49ers can really get going. So I do think the 49ers, and I think everybody feels this way, are the better team straight up right now with the rosters that are going to be on the field tonight because of all those injuries. And so if I'm the 49ers and I look at what's been happening around the league, they better win this game tonight and take care of business.
Yeah, for sure. Given the fact that they're favored in this game, the Seahawks lost today in Munich, and they played Tampa over there. So
the Buccaneers are back at the top of the division.
Yep. The Buccaneers back on top of what you want to make of the NFC South at 5-5.
Oh, God.
And if the 49ers win tonight, they're only a half game behind Seattle in the NFC West. So certainly not a game that lacks importance. The Chargers win. They're only a game behind Kansas City. I do agree. I think the Chargers will try to keep it on the ground early, but eventually will fall behind. And then you're going to see some second half throwing from this Charger team tonight. And part of what's interesting is if we start kind of looking at the DraftKings build a little bit, the two most popular captain selections are going to be the two running backs. And it makes sense. You get full PPR on DraftKings. So you got McCaffrey, a good pass-catching running back. You've got Eckler, a good pass-catching running back with a depleted wide receiver group for the Chargers. And so those two guys are taking up the lion's share of captain ownership tonight. Are you more liable to go with one of those guys? Are you going off the board? I know you called the running backs on Thursday, so are we going with the running backs again on Sunday?
Well, I mean, the running backs are definitely going to be, the top targets for this particular slate. And, I mean, it really makes all the sense in the world because not only are they going to get carries, but they're going to get targets. Now, I know Deebo Samuel was out last week, but even still, man, when you're looking at what – Christian McCaffrey has done since he arrived in San Francisco. That full week of practice against the Rams, 18 carries, 9 targets. That's big volume. And then you go over to Austin Eckler, who essentially, I think Austin Eckler is actually a better play than Christian McCaffrey because of the lack of weapons thereof for his side. So, and he picked up 9 targets as well. I think Austin Eckler is most likely to continue to get more targets in the passing game by virtue of the game script that I think, I have in my head here. Christian McCaffrey may not be relied upon in terms of targets down the stretch in this game. Now, that doesn't mean he can't get there early, but I think if I had to choose one guy, I think I'm taking Eckler straight up because of the type of game script that I'm expecting. So I like them both. I think either running back is viable. Right now we've got, at least at our ownership projections, McCaffrey is at 47% and Austin Eckler is at 40%. Once again, I do think Eckler's the better play, but that's more predictive game script than anything else. All things being equal, they're both really great plays.
Yeah, I think you broke that down pretty well. I mean, you could see a lot of dink and dunk short passing game targets for Eckler in the second half of this game if the 49ers are able to, get out to a lead and maybe play a little softer coverage, something like that. I think the path to that happening, you broke down pretty well. So don't mind that myself. I think that's a viable option. And if we kind of, go through a sample build too, he's about 600 cheaper in the captain spot than McCaffrey is. So put Eckler there in the captain for now. If you're looking to go a little off the board, I mean, is there a pass catcher you would consider as a captain? I guess based on the way we expect the game script to go, maybe a Chargers pass catcher you would consider, or are you just going with Eckler?
Not for me. I think it would be Joshua Palmer. I mean, he picked up, I think, about 10 targets last week, if I remember correctly, just 10. From when I was. Yeah, so I think Palmer is would be the guy here. I definitely think he's got the ability to hit more of the big plays. Now, I'm not saying Eckler can't take a screen to the house or something like that, but Palmer's going to get his chances down the field. And, all you need really, Justin, is if he catches one touchdown pass for like 40 yards, 50 yards, something like that, let's say he catches 160-yarder, in the first quarter or something. Well, he's at 13 fantasy points right out of the gate. Now anything else he gets it's gravy. And so you got to assume he's probably going to get another 10 targets tonight. My assumption is even if he catches 60% of those, he's probably 6 catches. I'd say maybe 70, 80 yards, depending on if he gets loose in the secondary. I think Joshua Palmer is a really good play because they have to rely on him. Whereas with San Francisco, you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Kittle, you've got McCaffrey, and it's virtually an unstoppable offense tonight. Whereas, with the Chargers, their offense is going to be a little more condensed because of the injuries, and Palmer is definitely going to be the main guy.
Yeah, as you can see, 8 catches on 10 targets last week for Palmer, so certainly operating as their number one receiver, just with how depleted they are without their top 2 guys, obviously. So no issues there on my end. I think Palmer is a solid contrarian captain choice if you are looking to go away from Eckler, and he probably fits in the, you could probably play Palmer and Eckler and get away with not playing Herbert in this type of lineup. But and can we conceivably build like without either quarterback here? Do we have to play Garoppolo or Herbert? One of the rare slates where you might be able to get away with that on a showdown slate.
Well, I think it's so weird because Herbert is the quarterbacks or the quarterback in Herbert. He's pretty almost $2,000 cheaper than McCaffrey. And then he's, pretty much $1,000 cheaper than Eckler. I think if I was playing one quarterback, it would be Herbert because of, once again, it's just the game script I have in my head that, San Francisco is going to get out to a lead here. And I think if they get out to a lead, I don't think Shanahan is going to say, hey, Jimmy, go out and let's keep the foot on the gas. I think it's going to be more hand it to McCaffrey. We may even see some other running backs get involved. They get out to, let's say they're up by 14 points or so. They may even, I don't want to say limit McCaffrey, but get some other guys a few more carries as they try to run the ball down the field rather than pass. So I think for me, it's Herbert. We do have, for what it's worth, we do have Jimmy Garoppolo projected better than Herbert tonight, which is interesting. I think it's just because of the weapons opportunity. He should be able to score fantasy points with what's around him. So I totally get it. But if they get behind this game like we think, I'm penciling in Herbert for, a little over 300 yards, and then it's just up to touchdown variance. And so I think Herbert's the better play tonight. And once again, I think you can get Eckler, Herbert, and Joshua Palmer in any lineups, no problem. And then maybe you take McCaffrey on the other side, fade Jimmy, and get some kicker in there or something like that. Or take another really, really cheap guy. And I think you can ride this thing to the money. Or at least if you've got some type of single entry or cash build, I definitely think Eckler, Herbert, and Palmer is the way to go.
Yeah, so if you go Eckler, Herbert, and Palmer, and if you try to squeeze McCaffrey in there, you're only at 1,600 for your last 2 spots. Now, there are some viable punts. Elijah Mitchell is expected to play for the 49ers. He's $200. Jawan Jennings is $600. Michael Bandy is going to operate as the third receiver for the Chargers. He's $2,400. So this is doable, right? If you play Bandy and Jennings as your last 2 players, or Bandy and Elijah Mitchell as your last 2 players, it's actually doable where you can have a lineup with Herbert, Eckler, McCaffrey, and Palmer, probably 4 of the highest projected scorers in the same lineup. And now this lineup will be duplicated a lot. I wouldn't probably use that as a GPPer, but you got Mitchell, you got Jennings, you've got Bandy as potential punts. Do you have a take on that group of, kind of complete dart throw punt guys?
Man, once again, if I'm going with how I feel like the slate could go, doesn't it have to be Mitchell? Like that's what it feels like. Like if I'm assuming that the running game is kind of going to take off here with the lead, I think Mitchell would be the guy. And once again, that's just kind of taking a chance. I will say this too, just kind of in a flip flop scenario. I think we could get away the other way to try to make this build work, just to get a few more dollars. Is kind of like we talk. And I'm not saying do this now, but if we get Palmer at the captain, then that opens it up just a touch. And now I'm really getting close to having something that's looking really good here. But neither here nor there. But I think if I had to choose down at the bottom in terms of running back, definitely probably going to be Mitchell. And really all I'm hoping for Mitchell is that the game gets, I don't want to say out of hand, but enough to where maybe he picks up 8 to 10 carries, and that 6 carries for 41 yards that he had way back in September turns into 6 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown. And you get something like that, and now it's like, well, wait a minute, $300 guy picked up 10 points. If everybody else does their job, like that's putting you close to probably winning the GPP if you've got the pieces everywhere else.
Yeah, and you can see if you do that, that tends to open up that build to where maybe you can get a kicker or a defense in there in that kind of open spot. That's instead of 2 punt guys. So, all right, let's talk about the other pass catchers in this game. We talked about the Chargers. We talked about Palmer a little bit. Any interest in DeAndre Carter?
Yeah.
For the Chargers, or are you just going with Palmer?
No, I've got interest. I mean, at 5,400, he's another guy that, especially if we're kind of building this onslaught Chargers lineup, like I feel like Herbert, Carter, Palmer, Eckler, in my opinion, is going to get you 80% of the production, because I do understand that Everett's hanging out there as well, right? But all in all, those 5 guys, all the production should come from pretty much those 5 guys. So I don't have any problems getting DeAndre Carter in there, a guy who's kind of been involved in the offense most of the year anyway, with Keenan Allen going down. Not that he was catching, 5 or 6 balls a game, but he was involved. Now, all their main guys are out. This feels like a spot where he catches 4 or 5 balls if they're behind. And, I guess what we're expecting is, hey, let's hit him in the end zone, catch 4 or 5 balls, maybe 50, 60 yards, and we're looking at something special here. So I like Carter, like Eckler, like Herbert, like Palmer. I know we haven't talked about tight ends specifically, but I'm grouping Everett in there just because, those 5 guys have to get it done for the Chargers if they're going to have any shot at being competitive in this game.
Yeah, and you could, if you really want to open up that lineup and put like Everett in instead of Eckler or something like that, or instead of Herbert, then you can maybe spend up on another stud. And it's not like we expect the Chargers to dominate this game. We just expect their passing game volume to be there in the second half if they fall behind, and then the 49ers to kind of focus on the run a little bit. And so that makes things, a little bit trickier on the San Francisco side. You do have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk basically priced around the same level, so most people are going to probably go to Deebo. You can see we've got Deebo's ownership a little higher there. Juwan Jennings and Ray McLeod will mix in a little bit as the next 2 receivers, and then of course you've got Kittle at tight end, who's had a pretty disappointing year. So I know we don't love them because we don't think they're going to throw a ton, but if you had to kind of power rank your interest in the 49ers receivers, what do you got?
Man, it's interesting because I'm actually not sure how this distribution tree is going to continue with McCaffrey there. It kind of feels like McCaffrey is going to be the guy like they did in Carolina, and then they'll sprinkle in the wide receivers. I feel like Deebo should essentially still be the number 1 guy, but he's not going to get near rushing volume as he would now because McCaffrey's there. I think I still side with Deebo, but I don't think the gap is that big, and the ownership gap isn't too big. But I think all in all, I think Ayuk and Sanders probably equal in his offense now with McCaffrey there. And neither one of them in terms of a showdown slate. You know, one's projected for 11 fantasy points, one's projected for 14. You know, obviously I don't completely rely on the projections, but for the salary discounts you get, like if you were to take Ayuk straight up over Debo tonight, I wouldn't be mad at you. Like I think they both could end up pretty close in the end.
Yeah, you can see on their props, they're both projected around 4.5 catches, around 50 yards. Debo plus 125 for a touchdown. Ayuk plus 156 for a touchdown. And people are just going to go to Debo because he obviously offers a little bit of rushing potential. They get him in on some gadget plays, things of that nature that Ayuk does not provide that. But for those of you who are maybe multitasking, the Packers have won in overtime against Dallas, so big win for them. Bad loss for the Cowboys in a game that they led by 14 points in the fourth quarter. And
Listen.
if you're go ahead.
Oof, that's rough. And let me just say for everyone that happens to listen to Food for Thought, man, I'm gonna have to really, really tone down my Aaron Rodgers takes this week. Perhaps I'll even eat a few words. But Green Bay's still not a good football team. I don't care if they won today. They're still not a good football team. But the Cowboys are essentially handing this division away to the Philadelphia Eagles at this point, as long as the Eagles continue to win. And perhaps, if the New York Giants continue to win, they could end up third in the division here. But we'll see. Still plenty of football left. But I'm absolutely not shocked. But let's go with mildly surprised that the Cowboys lost today.
Yeah, and I actually put game stacks of that game in my GPP article this week, and they put a snippet of it out on Twitter, and people laughed at me and called it fake news and all that stuff. And if you did that, it was a high-scoring day, so it's not like the stacks were the winners. But Christian Watson caught 3 touchdowns for the Packers. CeeDee Lamb had 11 for 150 and 2 for Dallas. Tony Pollard and Aaron Jones both over 100 rushing yards. Both quarterbacks threw 3 touchdowns, and both teams had over 400 yards of offense. So pretty good offensive day there. And then if you're playing NBA tonight and you were waiting on the LeBron James news, he is officially out. So just passing that along for anybody who might be multi-sport tasking tonight as well. All right, we got about 12 minutes to lock. We'll go over to FanDuel here in a second. But kickers and defenses, what do we got for interest there tonight?
I mean, I think if you're taking any defense, it's probably the 49ers defense and not the Chargers defense. I'm not as high on the kickers tonight, though, Justin. And the main thing is, so we've got Coach Brandon Allen over there with the Chargers. This guy hates kickers. He doesn't care if his name is Dicker. He doesn't care about the college football legend Dicker the kicker. If they're anywhere within, if it's 4th and 3, he's going for it. 4th and 4, 4th and 5, he may push it. But even 4th and 5 to 20, just like he may go for it here. I'm not as into the kickers tonight as I usually am. And then on the flip side of that is I do feel like even with Jimmy Garoppolo leading this football team, I feel like the 49ers can just score touchdowns at will tonight. So I'm not as interested. Now, do I think you need exposure to them? Absolutely. But this might be the one slate this year where I'm not feeling the kickers as much as usual.
Are you okay? You feeling all right? Figure I'd check on you there if you're not into the kickers. No, I get it. And the logic, true, that Staley likes to go for it on 4th down. It just that he does, and now he's got the built-in excuse of it was a 48-yarder. I didn't want to push the rookie kicker, etc. So he's got a built-in reason to go for it. So the logic, I think, makes sense there with maybe not being as into the kickers tonight, but 49ers side I think is fine. 49ers defense, right? It's not that the Chargers defense is horrible, but the 49ers play a style of limit mistakes and play field position, and it's just tough for a defense to put up a huge score against them, particularly in a game if the 49ers happen to be controlling, they'll have the lead and don't have to get forced to the air. So, all right, I went over to FanDuel here quick. And again, we've still got the ownership on McCaffrey and Eckler as the MVPs. You don't have the salary multiplier over there on FanDuel, but you only have half-point PPR on FanDuel. So any less interest in these two running backs on FanDuel compared to DraftKings, or are we still going with McCaffrey and Eckler here?
No, I'm still good just because they have so many ways to score points. So even in half-point PPR, I think you could, let's say McCaffrey catches 5 balls for 50 yards. That's 7.5 points. And Eckler, maybe he catches 7 for 70. They're still taking up so much offense. And then on top of that, they've got good touchdown equity as a result of being involved in both facets of the game, running and passing. And so with all that touchdown equity and opportunity, I still think these guys are the better plays. Now, what will happen is, for those of you that are kind of thinking on FanDuel about being a little bit more tournament-minded, is if they don't get in the end zone, then these quarterbacks probably have 3 to 4 passing touchdowns. Most likely. If neither one of these guys – and one of those passing touchdowns could essentially be to these running backs. So I'm fully aware of that as well. But I'm saying if they don't have any touchdowns, rushing or passing, then Garoppolo probably has, maybe 2 touchdowns to Debo or 2 to Ayuk or 2 to Kittle and 1 to, or 3, 1 to each. Something like that has happened. And now Garoppolo may even become MVP optimal as a result of that. Now, I don't think Garoppolo is going out here and is going to torch the Chargers for 4 touchdowns. I do think one of the running backs, either Eckler or McCaffrey, is probably your best bet for a captain tonight because of that involvement. But, if you're trying to play a little devil's advocate here, if not, I got to feel like it's one of the quarterbacks as a result of the multiple passing touchdowns. But if you ask me straight up, I take the running backs.
Yeah, I do like Herbert a little bit more as an MVP choice on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings, but I still don't have any issue going with the running backs. We do have a few questions in the YouTube chat. Make sure we get to these with enough time for people to navigate the changes. We talked about Elijah Mitchell earlier as the super cheap price. Somebody asked about Kyle Juszczyk, who's kind of the fullback du jour. He'll get 3 or 4 targets a game, sometimes in the backfield. Sometimes they'll get a goal line carry. One of those annoying kind of Taysom Hill type showdown plays that, there's so much variance. But I think he's like 2K on DraftKings, so he's a little bit more than some of the dirt cheap punts. But any interest in Kyle Juszczyk tonight?
He's been involved. Do we think this type of complete involvement continues? They are going to use him, so I'm not worried about it. But for what it's worth, I feel like Mitchell could impact, some of the work he would have. Now I know they'll, run a few plays for him off play action, and if he happens to get in the box, and he's looking good. But I'm not feeling Juszczyk tonight when I feel like Elijah Mitchell is going to have a little bit more involvement. So I'm not as interested. Debo's back, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. I think the ball it's going too many places for him to not be a primary guy. So I just side with a much cheaper guy.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not on him either, but there's always you can always luck box a goal line score or something like that. All right, Dan has asked, what about Herbert captain with 3 Charger pass catchers, 49ers D, and Samuel on DraftKings? I certainly think that is okay. If you got 3 Charger pass catchers, that Herbert captain lineup is fine. The worry I would have there is it sounds like that lineup, maybe you don't have Eckler or McCaffrey in it. And maybe I'd change one of those pass catchers and maybe Debo to maybe get one of the running backs in there, maybe get McCaffrey in there if you can make that work. All right, Jovan says, do you think Bandy is okay on DraftKings as a captain? Is it likely to get duped in large field GPPs? I think we just have Bandy at like 4 or 5% ownership in the captain, so he's certainly fine as one of those cheaper Charger pass catchers and pretty much lets you get whatever else you want into your lineup. So I know we talked about Palmer. We talked about Carter. Bandy's going to be the third wide receiver, but any other takes on that for you?
No, I think you covered. I'm not as interested in Bandy captain. I don't mind him in a flex, but captain, I'd have to pass.
So if you were going for a Charger pass catcher in the captain, I believe you mentioned that Palmer would be your choice there. And you just hope he gets the targets. All the targets.
Absolutely.
All right. So what do we got for props tonight? Anything catching your eye?
Well, I mean, I guess we can head on over to Stat Hero because I did, especially since it's sponsored by them. Justin, I know you probably got the plug for it if you want to.
Yeah, I do. I will. I'll pass that along. So if you check out Stat Hero, if you haven't heard of it, unique fantasy sports platform. It allows users to compete only against the house and not against the other players in a contest. There's head-to-head style contests where Stat Hero provides a lineup that you have to beat with your own, and then pick'em style contests. You can check out the Big Dime League, which is a NFL season-long leaderboard contest up to $50,000 in prizes, which you can enter all season long. Promo code GRINDERS get you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250 to jump into the action today over at Stat Hero. So what do you like?
Yeah, so I mean they've given us Brandon Ayuk versus Joshua Palmer straight up. And then they're giving Ayuk, plus 1 fantasy point. And I think Ayuk is at like 12-1 and Palmer's at like 12-9. Look, if I had to side with one guy, it's got to be Joshua Palmer. Like Ayuk is not going to see nearly the type of volume that Palmer's going to see tonight. So this really felt like a layup. Now, hopefully, I get proven right here. Joshua Palmer, doesn't have a floor game and drops or misses a bunch of catches. But if everything lines up like it should, Palmer feels like the best play between these two because of the volume he's going to receive.
All right. So again, check out Stat Hero, 50% bonus up to $250 with promo code GRINDERS, and you can get in on Stat Hero today. Anything else you like in the prop arena tonight?
Yeah, man. So if you're playing NFL tonight, there's one prop I really like here, and I think it lines up with how we feel like this game is going to go, and that's pass attempts. And on Price Picks, they've got Justin Herbert sitting at 37.5. Justin, out of the last 5 games, he's only gone up under that total once, and that was against the Cleveland Browns, which makes tons of sense. 39 against Houston, 34 against Cleveland, 57 against Denver, 51 against Seattle, 43 against Atlanta, and I'm expecting them to be behind big time in this game. So Herbert at 37.5 pass attempts felt like, a very opportunistic line to take advantage of in a spot where I'm expecting them to be behind. So,
yeah, especially if they're playing from behind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one that, I liked a great deal. And then in terms of receptions, we've got Joshua Palmer at 5 receptions. Now, he's had 9 receptions and 8 receptions in the past 2 weeks. And I got to feel like that's going to pretty much continue here with him getting double-digit targets. So basically what I'm saying is if he gets 10 targets, if he can catch 60% of his passes, which is 6 balls, then we're going to blow through this reception number here. So at 5 receptions, that's another one that I really like. We've also got DeAndre Carter at 3. I'm willing to take a little bit of push potential on that. But I think with all these guys out, Carter at 3, feels like another really, really, really good number. And then last but not least, we've got George Kittle at 41 receiving yards. 41 receiving yards. What if I told you I'm inclined to take the under on that? I don't think he's going to be that involved tonight. I don't see it. Like, if they get ahead, Kittle's known to just disappear in this offense. And so it feels really yucky until you say, well, if they get in control of this game, they don't need Kittle. He's going to be out there blocking for the running game. So that was a little bit more speculative. But I know George Kittle disappeared in San Francisco. So that one was probably a little bit more of a hot take for folks, especially since he's been kind of cranking it up the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior to the LA game. But once again, they get in control of this game, I don't think they'll need him. He'll be involved in the blocking schemes, and so I'm willing to take the under there. Let's hope he doesn't get it in the first half.
Yeah, those are never fun when you take an under and it hits in the first half. All right, so with that, we're right at lock. Great timing there, and hopefully everybody got their lineups finalized and submitted, and we can go ahead and get out of here. So thanks to Will for joining me. Thanks to Steve for producing behind the scenes for us tonight. We hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Enjoy the football game. We'll be back here tomorrow on Monday for our usual NBA slate of content over at RotoGrinders, and then our Monday Night Football pre-lock show as well. So for Will, I'm Justin. We will catch you back here tomorrow, everyone. Have a good evening.